Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something maybe a bit unexpected, the world of aquatic life, specifically Jewel Cichlids. But trust me, this isn't just about fish keeping. By the end, you'll see how this deep dive, well, it reveals some pretty universal lessons about observation, learning, making choices.
Absolutely.
Our source material today is, it's a really interesting set of notes. It's called Excerpts from Jewel Cichlid Breeding, Open Environment Observations. It's by Ang.
Right, part of their Notes on Fishkeeping series.
Exactly, part of that series. This was published just recently, September 2nd, 2025.
Very first perspective then.
Yeah. And our mission today, we want to unpack the nuanced decisions Ang shares about watching these fish. It's not just a how-to on breeding.
No, not at all.
We're looking at the process of observation itself. You know, the choices they made, the trade-offs, and what you can learn from each step.
And that's really the core of it, isn't it? Whether you're, a fish expert or just curious about nature, these detailed observations, even in a tank, they're incredibly valuable.
How so?
Well, they give you a direct window, sort of, into natural behaviors, social stuff, how they reproduce. And this is key, as Ang's notes show us, there's often this tension. Yeah, this sort of pull between wanting to see everything clearly, unobstructed observation, and needing to create the best, most secure conditions for the animals you're watching. It's a balance.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So let's dive into Ang's journey then. They mentioned this video footage from back in 2019, many moons ago, as they put it.
Right.
And it probably shows the second generation of Jewel Cichlids from one specific pair. But here's the surprising part, honestly.
Cool.
Ang is really upfront that the first pair they used, their quality, both form and color, was, and this is their word, inadequate.
Inadequate. Yeah, that jumps out, doesn't it?
It really does. You'd think for any breeding project, especially when you're going to watch so closely, you'd start with the absolute best, right? The prize winners.
You absolutely would think that. Pristine genetics, vibrant colors, all that, especially for someone documenting it.
So what was the thinking there? Why start with inadequate fish?
Well, Ang tells us directly, which is great. It was, and I quote, to simply hone our skills.
Ah, okay. So not about perfect fish yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The goal wasn't a show quality line right then. It was about the process, learning how to breed them. Think about when you learn anything new, like coding, baking, whatever.
Yeah, your first attempts are usually not great.
Right. They're rarely masterpieces.
Yeah.
Ang embraced that. They prioritized the hands-on practice, figuring things out, refining their own technique. They didn't wait for the perfect situation or the perfect fish.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It's about the learning, not the immediate outcome.
Precisely. It really speaks to the value of, just starting. Deliberate practice, even if things aren't ideal. The doing is where the learning happens.
It's like they were setting up a learning exercise, not just aiming for success right away. That's insightful. Okay, so let's look at the environment they used for this skill honing observation. Ang describes it as quite basic. And they really mean basic, like white sand on the bottom,
supple substrate, yeah.
And then just a sponge filter, very straightforward filtration, good for fry, the baby fish.
Gentle, yes.
And a flat rock. That was the designated breeding spot, and that's pretty much it. No fancy plants, no complex caves or wood, just open.
Very minimalist. You can picture it. Clean lines, not much clutter.
So why so basic? What was the advantage of that?
Well, that minimalism was deliberate. Ang says that this open space setup gave them a good observation area to study the entire breeding process.
Ah, so it was all about visibility.
Exactly. Think about it. Minimal hiding spots, no dense plants to peer through, all those fascinating cichlid behaviors, the courtship dances, laying the eggs, fanning them, the parental care. It's all right there, out in the open.
We're front row seats.
Pretty much. A simple setup can, paradoxically, give you clearer insights because there are fewer distractions.
Yeah.
It puts the behavior center stage. But it does highlight that tension we mentioned earlier.
How so?
Well, they chose visibility, ease of observation, over creating a more complex, maybe more natural-feeling habitat. For their goal at that time, honing skills, it made perfect sense. But it was choice.
Right, a stage designed for the observer, maybe less so for the actors, the fish, in a way?
That's one way to look at it, yeah. It's like building a lab environment almost, stripped down to focus on one variable, the breeding behavior.
Which makes me wonder, though, from the fish's point of view, Jewel Cichlids can be pretty territorial, right? They like having spots to claim, to hide.
They do, yes. They appreciate structure and security.
So did that very open environment maybe stress them out a bit? Feeling exposed?
That's a really sharp question. And yeah, quite possibly. In a wide-open space, they might feel more vulnerable, maybe lack clear territory boundaries that could potentially increase stress or even aggression. Not ideal for breeding, usually.
Yeah.
But remember, Aang's primary goal then was observation for skill building. So any potential fish discomfort was likely a known, calculated trade-off for getting that clear view, for maximizing their own learning.
A pragmatic choice for that specific learning phase. Got it. But Aang's journey didn't just stay there, right? They evolved their methods.
Correct. They didn't stick with just the open tank approach. The notes clearly state they later switched to using artificial caves in subsequent breeding projects.
Okay, so a definite shift. Caves instead of open space.
A very significant shift, yeah. And it signals a change in priorities,
Yeah.
or at least an addition to them.
So what did the caves offer? What was the benefit of that change?
Well, think about it from the fish's perspective again. Those caves, they provided a more secure and comfortable space for the fish and their fry.
Security and comfort. Makes sense.
It's huge for successful breeding, especially for cichlids with their intense parenting. Imagine being a tiny fry in that big open tank we just talked about. A cave is protection. It's shelter. It reduces stress for the parents, gives them a defined, defensible territory.
So better for the fish's well-being.
Absolutely. Better welfare, less stress, likely higher breeding success, and fry survival rates. It's about optimizing for the fish themselves.
Okay, so Aang moved from optimizing for their own observation needs to optimizing for the fish's needs. But there's always a but, isn't there?
Often is.
Aang is also really clear about the flip side. Caves are great for fish comfort and security, yes. But, they state, that confined cave environment does not provide the good observation area, like the above video.
And boom, there it is. The trade-off laid bare.
They gained fish welfare, but lost some of that crystal clear observation.
Perfectly encapsulates that central tension, doesn't it? If you step back and look at the bigger picture, it's this dilemma you see in, well, lots of observational studies, maybe even in managing projects or learning new things yourself.
How do you mean?
Well, you have this desire to see everything, get all the data, understand every little detail, but you also have the need, sometimes ethically, sometimes just practically, to provide the best, safest, most natural conditions for whatever you're studying or working on.
Right. Ideal for study versus ideal for the subject.
Exactly. Aang's journey shows that different setups serve different goals. The open tank. Ideal for seeing the whole process, learning the fundamentals, the caves. Ideal for breeding success, fish welfare, even if you can't see every single moment inside.
Yeah.
It's about picking the right tool or environment for the job at hand.
It really paints a picture of learning as like a dynamic process, not just one static method.
Definitely iterative.
So let's try and pull this all together. Looking back at Aang's notes on fish keeping, we've seen this clear path. Started with accepting imperfection, right? Breeding inadequate fish just to learn, just to hone skills.
Step one, yeah. Practice over perfection.
Then step two, that's super basic open tank. Purpose-built for clear, unobstructed observation of the whole breeding cycle.
Maximizing the learning from observation.
And then step three, adapting again. Bringing in artificial caves. Prioritizing the fish's security, their comfort, their well-being, even though it meant less visibility for Aang.
Yeah, a shift in priority based on evolving goals. Or maybe just a different phase of the project.
So what's the big takeaway here?
I think what Aang's journey really hammers home is that learning, real learning, is rarely just a straight line. It's almost always iterative. You try something, you learn, you adapt.
You don't just find the one right way and stick to it.
Exactly. Aang didn't. They optimize for different things at different times. Sometimes, yes, you do prioritize getting that detailed observation, getting the data. Even if the setup isn't perfectly natural or ideal for the subject, you accept the trade-off for the sake of insight.
Okay.
But other times, you absolutely must prioritize the comfort, the security, the optimal conditions for your subject or your project. Even if it means you can't see everything or control everything as tightly. It's about making conscious choices.
Knowing why you're doing what you're doing at that specific moment.
Precisely. What's your main goal right now? What are you trying to learn or achieve in this phase? It's this dynamic dance of trade-offs.
Wow, that's a really elegant lesson. All from watching Jewel Cichlids. Aang's choices, though they might seem small in the context of fish keeping, they really reveal so much about observation, learning, adapting.
It's fascinating stuff. And it really leaves us with a question, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to think about.
Oh, what's that?
Well, in your own life, your own pursuits, Maybe learning a skill, maybe managing a project at work, or just trying to get your head around a complex idea. How do you strike that balance?
Balance between what?
Between that need for clear observation, for raw data, for maybe just experimenting and seeing what happens, versus creating the most ideal, secure, or comfortable conditions for whatever it is you're working on or with.
Like, when do you prioritize getting the unvarnished view, even if it's messy?
Right. And when do you prioritize creating the perfect environment, the secure space, even if it means you can't see quite as clearly into the process? What compromises are you willing to make, consciously, to gain insight in one stage? And when does the well-being or optimal state of your subject have to come first, even if it limits your view?
That is a powerful thought to sit with. When is it time for the open tank, and when is it time for the cave?
Something to mull over.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the surprisingly profound lessons from Jewel Cichlid breeding. Until next time, keep exploring.